Good evening, good evening, good evening. What a night we are going to have tonight. I have some amazing guests. We are going to talk about our connections in the workplace, and we're also going to talk about our connections in the school. I have Virginia Campbell and I have Pernell Bush. They are excellent guests. We're going to get into it, but I first really want to just welcome you to our show and just kind of give you an idea of why this book came about. I've been writing for some time now and giving presentations on messages of connection and belonging. And I just thought I would write down some of the ideas or things that I've been working with to make sure that we have that information where people can understand it if they want to know exactly what I'm going to cover. So before we begin, I want you to recognize we have a book for sale. It's called Messages on Connection and Belonging. I must say myself, I happen to think this is my best book yet. As you know, I think this is the seventh one. I've written about 7 books, and this is the best book yet. I am so excited to have this book and to share this book with you. Tonight, I have my special guest. I have Virginia Campbell. Let's bring Virginia up. And what we want to do when we talk to Virginia, I want Virginia to just give us a little bit about herself and tell us what she's doing now. Come on up, Virginia.
Hi, Danny.
Hey, Virginia. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. So tell me, Virginia, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing and why the focus on education and connection and belonging is so important to you.
Well, I have been in education I spent 28 years in education. I was a teacher, a specialist. Then I became an administrator. And just over the course of my time in education, I just saw the fact that so many students, as an administrator, I saw that so many students didn't feel like they belonged on campus or in a classroom, and there wasn't just a relationship with their teachers.
Yes,
and that was the majority of the discipline problems that I saw. The fact that they didn't feel, because one thing I recognized early on in my teaching career is that if students feel like they have a relationship with you and with others, they do anything in the world for you. They're not going to misbehave. You're not going to have discipline problems. The parents will love you, and you'll be able to build that relationship long after they've left your classroom. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're great. And the one thing I do love about you, and that's why I really wanted you to be on this show tonight, because you created relationships with the parents, with the students, and with your faculty. People love themselves some Virginia. And that's because you really took the time to create relationships. And I think that's the part that's so important, that we have to take time to create that connectedness and belonging that we also desire, because we want to know that we are in that safe space. Virginia, I'm going to call you back a little bit later and to answer a few more questions, but I'm going to bring up Pernell Bush right now. Pernell, what's up? Where you at?
Hey, Danny, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
Much, man. Man, you are the hardest working man in the therapeutic world.
Hey, listen, man. I think we all are doing our parts out here, man. I'm very excited about your book here. I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation. I'm not gonna lie, man. My team don't double book me out here, but I'm here.
Hey, and I'm excited, you came to the right one. That's all that matters. You came to the right one. Let me stop.
That's it, man. But listen, to be honest, man, I'm excited about this conversation. When you talk about, connection and belonging, and particularly within the workplace, right? Yeah. Think about it. If you don't feel connected with those that you are working alongside of, or you don't feel like you belong within the organization that you are now integrating in the majority of the day of your life. You're not going to do your best work. You're not going to be producing your best self, right? I always tell, when I go out and do speaking to different organizations and companies, I always say, how are you connecting with your team members? Right? Not only connected from the mission and the values of the company, but how are you connected on a humanistic standpoint?
Yes.
How you ensure Yes, right. And then how are you ensuring that they feel as if they belong?
Mm.
Not because they are doing a role that is going to potentially bring more funding to your company, but they feel like they belong and they are actually valued in this place.
Exactly. So, and you said it all. That's how we get output out of people who work with us, for us, is them seeing as though they're part of the assignment. They're part of the building. They're part of the organization from ground one. And it's not about this is your little spot, but it's a collaborative effort. Man, this is going to be hot. I can already tell. Pernell, we're going to bring Virginia on with you right now. So Virginia is an educator, and I know y'all. We're gonna create a fire tonight. It's gonna be so hot. So Virginia, come on here. So I had a question for both of you guys. So we talk about connection and belonging in the workplace, and then we talk about connection and belonging in education. I think those two go so well together. And I think you guys have you've talked about it previously, but I want to go a little bit in depth. Why is it so important that we have relationships and we feel as though we belong and we feel as though we are accepted? I'd love to hear from you, Virginia. Can you start out for us? Why is that so important for us? Just kind of get into this.
Well, it's important because, like your book says, love, belongings, and connections are the universal sources of true well-being. And so when we feel like, so you're not only looking at your physical well-being, but your emotional well-being as well. And it's important because if you don't feel like you belong, it just creates just the cyclic effects of things that you're feeling, the internal turmoil that you feel. And that's what I see. I used to see all the time with kids. They just didn't feel like they belonged anywhere. And from that stem so many other issues.
Virginia, I want to interject right here, but I often think about, like, even as a faculty member, you and I working together, a lot of times when you don't feel like you belong, you second guess yourself. You don't know if you're making the right choice. You're thinking about, does this person like me, or how do they feel about me? Why are they doing this or that? If I'm in relationship and I feel like I have trust in those types of things, I don't have to question myself as much if I know that we're in relationship, because I know how you move. I know what you think of me, and I know when I'm not doing something you need me to do. You're going to tell me because we're in relationships. Pernell, I want to go to you. Same question. Why is connection and belonging, and you gave so much good insight, why is connection and belonging so imperative to us at this crucial time?
I mean, at the very beginning of life, we understand how important connection is, right? Think about it. When a child is first born, we talk about skin-to-skin contact with the parents, right?
Come on.
You know, as we transition into our lifespans and we get into different life sectors, connection is still important.
Yes.
Right. It is still important. We may not do it necessarily like skin to skin, but we have to find a way to connect, like-mindedness. Like we say, you don't want to connect with someone that's like-minded like you, or you connect with the vision of someone, or you connect with the mission with someone, or connect with the overall, I just heard this other day, somebody said, I just connect with your aura. Right. And we feel that with the different organizations and things that we actually join as well. Like you walk into a space and you're supposed to be with this organization, and it's like, and you're not feeling as if I am connected here. If I don't feel connected, I know I don't belong.
Right? I'm telling you.
Right. But yes.
Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. You were going.
No, that's why connection is important, because in order for us to feel as if we belong, we have to connect first. So once we feel connected, then that's when the belonging come in place.
I want you guys to read this one on the screen. Thank you, Pernell. That information is so true. But I really want to look at this one real fast. It says it can be so difficult to connect when you're burned out. And I just kind of want to go ahead and talk about this one, because I think for me, pandemic, years and years in the educational system, just more. And if you don't feel like you're connected, it feels like drudgery when people continue to ask more. And I know this is universal to all workplaces, but I think there is so much that happens in that particular setting. And go ahead.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie, I hate to do this, but I gotta jump on because like I said, my team double booked.
Okay.
I got a couple here.
You gotta come back. You gotta come back.
We gotta come back, man. I do apologize. I know this conversation is gonna be dynamic.
Come on. You have to come back. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
We'll get back to it. Thank you. So let's look at this. Let's look at this from the mindset of being burned out and being in education. Why do you think we get to that particular place, Virginia, where we feel like we're burned out and we're just trying to, I guess we're just trying to go along to get along versus actually tending to ourselves, doing what we need to do so we can feel connected. Do you have any suggestions as to how we can feel more connected? Somebody said making withdrawals and making no deposits, burnout. Oh my gosh, that's good.
That is so true. We're constantly, and as an administrator, I would always say to my teachers, if you're not good, your kids are not good. So you're going to have to take time for yourself. And just like they said, always making withdrawals. We're not putting anything back all the time. We're not. And Danny, you started something at campus.
Yes.
And do you remember when you started that group for all of the teachers and all the administrators?
Yes.
Because we were like, we saw the need that, oh my goodness, our culture is shifting, the teachers are burnt out. We're just all tired. And you started where we had an open dialogue.
Yes.
To be able to talk about things that really concerned us. And just from having those group meetings with you, I saw a remarkable improvement in the staff. And I think that was wonderful. And I can't remember what you called it at the time, but we met every week just to talk about our trials and tribulations.
Yes. And the thing about that, we're so used to putting up airs and trying to be this and trying to be that. And we're tending to everybody else. And I keep saying this throughout the book, but the relationship that's most important, we're not tending to ourselves. We're coming to school burned out. We're coming to work, not able to fully give our kids the best because we're not at our best. I'm going to tell you, people, counseling is out there for a reason. Support is out there for a reason. If you're a person of faith, whatever you need to do, get into those spaces that fill you up, and it doesn't make you feel like you're just drowning and you're isolated and you're alone. Sometimes we're so used to putting on that face. You hear me? Putting on a face and not being our authentic selves. I remember when I first started, Virginia, I, as a teacher, I used to say, okay, I'm not going to let them know that I don't know how to do this assignment. And so I think about on that particular day, kids did not get everything they needed to get from me because you know what? I was putting on a face because I was too afraid to ask. Let's see what this IL says. I like that. I need to stop letting the people pleaser in me allow others to take and take and take. Good point. Yes, you got to know, you got to set some boundaries. You got to set some boundaries. And my boundary was I'll either give you an hour in the morning or an hour in the evening, or I'll break that thing up 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. But you and I both know I used to roll that cart around and put it in the car and didn't do anything with it. You hear me? And so
I remember those days.
Yes. And I was just perpetrate. You never feel like you did enough. Virginia, go ahead and share with us anything.
Well, but I was going to say this, that, since we know that teachers, administrators have this demand, you've got to work with parents, you've got to work with your school, administration, you've got to work with students. That's first and foremost. You've got to work with community members. You've got, the pressures of the test. You've got all these different things. And since we know the pressures are not going to go away, why not create safe spaces and safe environments like you did for our teachers? Why not do that? Because that's a form of self-care. And I remember the time that we were in our weekly meeting, just, with the staff, and it was voluntary, obviously, but I remember teachers crying during our session, crying, just saying, it feels so good to be able to talk about.
Exactly.
I did horrible on this lesson. I lost it on. I lost it today. You remember those?
I do
And I'm just
remember,
like,
and I have
I
lost it
lost
as well. I just
it.
think
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, and to me that is because the pressures aren't going to go anywhere, but it's how we handle the pressures, and that's what I
Yes.
think is important. It's how you handle them.
How you handle it. Virginia, I want to go ahead and look a little bit more into the book with some of our questions. So
Mhm.
let's start with this powerful quote by Dr. James Comer. It says, "No significant learning occurs without a significant relationship." And I'm going to say that again because it's worth repeating. No significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on this statement? How have you seen significant relationships impact learning or your educational experience? How have you seen that impact that?
Well, let's just okay. I'm going to talk about this. I know I've shared this with you, but I don't
Yes.
think that your viewers know. But when I was 11, my father was murdered,
Mm,
and so
wow.
that set that I became a statistic,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it was my teachers that developed that connection with me
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
encouraged me. So just knowing them, because there wasn't any there was counseling available, but we never did any counseling. We'll get
Yes.
through it. We're just gonna lean on our faith, and that's all well and good. But as an
Yes.
11-year-old that had a tragic loss, and I went through trauma and grief, but my teachers back in the 70s, well,
Mm-hmm.
81, I'm sorry, somehow knew what I needed
Mm-hmm.
when my mom didn't really know
Mm-hmm.
because this was new to her.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so to me, that is pouring into my bucket, making
Yes.
me feel just pouring into my bucket. But
Mm-hmm.
then as an administrator, I look at, just you talk about significant relationships, and I'm going to give you
Mm-hmm.
a brief story.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I can go on forever
Come
and
on, let's
ever.
go. You good. You good
But
with me.
um, I just remember talking about belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was an employee that I had, and um, she the whole year long it was just a challenge. Her and another student. It was a
Mm-hmm.
power struggle.
Yes.
And
Yes.
those stories
Mm-hmm.
and just one day she just this student, I knew all his
Mm-hmm.
siblings,
Mm-hmm.
the parents. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you're around them, everybody's
Mm-hmm.
talking at one time, you're trying to decipher who's going, just very animated,
Mm-hmm.
very lively group
Mm-hmm.
of people. And the teacher brought him into my office. She immediately left someone else and to watch her classroom, and she brought this student into my office.
Mm-hmm.
And she just said, that he was just so disrespectful. He just, and just a plethora of just different things. And then as I was talking to him with her there, the first
Right.
thing she said, see, he's being disrespectful to you. But again, when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about culture and feeling like you belong,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if she truly understood
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
she would know he was never being disrespectful. That
Right.
is just who he is.
That's just who
And
he is.
and the problem is the biggest coup de grace on all of this, just that blow, was when she said, he's just being disrespectful to you, and I just can't take it anymore.
Yes.
And that just diminished that relationship for the
Uh-huh.
rest of the entire year.
And
And that
because
really, I'm sorry.
no, I was you're good, but because she was offended,
Yes.
she decided that she needed to come in to defend you, and you didn't feel like you needed any defending. The thing about
Yes.
all of that is it's all about perception.
Yes.
It's all
Yes.
about our perception and how we see things. Go ahead,
and I
Virginia.
and I wanted to say this, that and you talk in your book, you said our perspective is so attuned to our own experiences and biases in
Yes.
life that we cannot truly understand what it's like to live another person's experience.
Yes.
And at that particular moment,
Mm-hmm.
saw the look on that student's face, and I knew this is going to
Mm-hmm.
be the rest of the year. I'm going to have to deal with this,
Mm-hmm.
I had to do some administrative things.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at myself and thought,
Mm-hmm.
man, I failed. I
Mm-hmm.
have failed at
Mm-hmm.
creating and to instilling and to insisting
Exactly.
and to by having everyone's buy-in about belonging within the classroom and within the campus itself.
Wow.
And that was a crucial point in my administrative career.
Man, Virginia, you talked about your own personal story. I want to go back there. One of the things that you said is the educators at your school noticed something was wrong.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about, what did that mean for you to be seen?
Oh, Danny.
Man.
I mean, you know, they knew. Now, you know this. You're a counselor, but you're talking about 1980, 1981. You know, they knew. My teachers, I felt like, were just ahead of their time. And I'm in a small rural community, but it meant so much to me because they knew that, like you always talk about the steps of grief that we go through, and my teachers knew well. And it wasn't the fact that, oh, I want her out. It just meant so much to me, and that's why I became an educator, because people pouring into my bucket.
Yes.
And I'll never forget her, Miss Lily. She had, I mean, some days I'm like, I look back and I have to just sit here and think, oh my gosh, Miss Lily, I know that you probably wanted to leave, walk out and leave the classroom because throughout my grief and trauma, Danny, I was doing just silly things.
Exactly.
But she just never gave up. She just consistently poured in and poured in and poured in. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she was able to self-care, because it had to do with me in 5th grade after my dad passed away, after my dad was murdered. Believe me, she had to have someone pouring into her bucket.
Wow.
As much as she gave to me, she had to have someone pouring into her. And
she
that
had
was
to.
My angel. That was my angel.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. I saw Tracy. He gave a statement, and also Lawrence gave a statement.
Yes.
Tracy said she had already judged that child. Her mind was made up. That happens with so many Black children. And you are correct. You know, but I also think it goes beyond races. I think it goes to the point, if you just find something within a child that you dislike, or it's a personality conflict, it really can change what can happen regarding that relationship and how that entire year goes for you, because something in you is triggered by that kid. And so we have to do a self-check every day when we walk into those doors and say, you know what? It's not about me in this particular situation. I'm here to educate. And Virginia, I used to always say to myself, I said, these students have this day, December the 3rd, to be in 3rd grade, to be taught by Mr. Ross, and they're coming with their buckets open, ready for me to pour into them just by coming and being here. Sometimes you have to recognize that what you do is greater than how you feel. Come on, I'm going to say that again. What you do is greater than how you feel. I was on assignment, Virginia, every day when I work with those kids, to just hear their stories. And so much of what I do is about hearing those stories. I think Lawrence had something on here that talked about feeling invisible. He had a quote up there. I feel invisible. I will disconnect. That is so true. When you don't feel seen, what go do? I'll go sit in my car during my lunch break. I'll go sit in my office during my lunch break. And I'm gonna be honest with you. People used to always ask me, why you sit in the cafeteria? You don't sit in the break room with everyone else.
Teacher's lounge.
Exactly. And I said, honestly, for me, those conversations didn't include me.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, and just like someone said in the comments, you know, when you're inauthentic, kids know that.
They know it.
And no, they spot it. They spot it right on. So you can play, you know, fake, all of that. Kids see it. And just like, and that hurt me so much for that child. And I said, oh my gosh, it just hurt me so much. And it just, you know, and I do believe some bias was there from the teacher's standpoint. Some bias, you know, she never been around students that looked like him. So therefore, you know, so, but again, as campuses, we need to do as administrators, we need to do a better job of making sure that, our teachers look like our students. Number one, you're faculty that's diverse. And on top of that, you have programs that are continue. It's not just going to be, Danny. I always say that substance versus symbolism.
Come on.
And it's easy to have a symbol, it's just an object, but substance is real meaning, the essential part. And one thing I can say truthfully that I'm really that I really love what you're doing, Danny, is you're going into a local school district, and they, to me, are leading the way because they know that in order for change to take place, it takes 3 to 5 years. We know
exactly.
But they're not just having Danny here. Well, we're gonna make it look good and have a symbol of Danny being out there because of what he looks like and what he does. They're actually saying we're gonna have true meaning. And every year I see that you go back multiple times
definitely
to revisit
yes
their school district. And that's what I'm saying. That right there is powerful. And that's what change takes place.
And that's where it takes place. One of the things that I notice a lot of times is, we have to recognize what our employees, what our kids, what they need. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that they don't see it and they don't need it. We have to get beyond ourselves when we're in these positions and say, get on their level. We always talk about getting on the students' level. Get on your faculty's level, get on your young people's level, and figure out what is it that they need. I'm gonna be realistic. I needed to see some people who look like me sometimes.
Exactly.
Hello. I needed to see some people who represented some of some other marginalized populations.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody has a right to feel like they see themselves in someone else, especially an adult. And so that's one of the things I'm advocating for. It is so important. Larry said that we empathize. We have to have empathy. And that means that we put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And I think that's what we've gotten away from. We've gotten away from that space to where we put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. Now, I want to look at this. The book talks about this trend. Kids and mental health has been declining for the last 10 years with increased rates of bullying, hopelessness, and suicide. It's a stark reality, but there's a beacon of hope. We have connectedness. Yes, connectedness has been shown to improve mental health and promote academic success. So, how have you seen connectedness impact students' mental health and academic success? Virginia, I'm going to let you go on that one, and I want to come back behind you and just talk about that, just seeing how it's been helpful. How have you seen connectedness impact students' mental health and academic success?
Well, what I've seen is they're happy to be there. For me as an administrator, I don't see a lot of the acting out behaviors. I see them enjoying themselves, loving the skin that they're in, being happy, still understanding and developing those coping skills that they, that they need to be successful in the real world. And it's not so much about their grades and looking at their academic performance. You've seen improvement in that, but to me, you can't until you get the emotional aspect down. I always say until we get that down, grades are secondary. They felt like that sense of belonging, finding a group of peers. It just made them a happier, healthier student.
Virginia, I want to talk about like what we saw in the midst of the pandemic. I remember when we left, and then I remember when we came back. And I remember it being so upsetting for so many students and faculty on so many different levels. And one of the things that I noticed as a counselor and as a therapist, I thought about, this is going to be long term. We're going to be dealing with the aftermath of this for quite some time. And I'm not going to lie, it was a struggle. It was hard. We were seeing kids online and they wouldn't show up to appointments. we're trying to support faculty and staff. And I do feel as though had we really prepared ourselves a little bit more with mental health support, allowing us to recognize that, when your mental health is off, you can't truly focus on anything else. I see people, they'll have a kid go into a mental health facility and they're like, well, what's going to happen to their grades? Can we focus on keeping them alive? Can we just do that? The grades will be there if they feel good, if they feel supported, if they don't feel like they have to be someone that they're not. Because, school has changed for us, I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have these different groups that the young people have today. So for me, I recognize that there's so much that our kids have to contend with. And just thinking about, I felt like I saw so many suicidal ideations in my private practice and even in the school system, which was very, very, very saddening. And so
very disheartening.
It's terrible. It's a terrible thing to think that a child wants to die by suicide because they don't fit in, they don't feel as though someone cares or sees them for who they are. And so one of the things I think about, we love to tend to stuff that has no effect on us. That's where we are today. We're pointing fingers and we're doing different things and we're trying to make issue out of something that you have no business in. And then I tell people all the time, I don't care what your belief is. We got kids in this office coming to my private practice, coming to my counselor's office, saying I want to die because I don't feel like I fit in. I'm ostracized. They're targeting me. Listen, people, I don't care about your personal belief system. We have kids who are dying because adults will not see them in the way that they need to be seen. So whatever your personal issue is, get over it and do what's necessary so our kids can be healed, our kids can be saved, our kids can have some worth. Virginia, I want anything you want to add to that?
No, I was looking at what Dr. Davis said, and it's the truth. She said, that mental health wasn't addressed when today's adults were children. What I told you my story, it wasn't even addressed. And but that is true. The first thing, and I just remember that so many times being an administrator. If my child is in the hospital, and then we had several of those. What's going to happen to the grades? And I'm like, we're not worried about the grades at this point. We're not worried about that.
You were so good at that. You were so good.
And I would tell them, we're not worried about the grades. If their mental health is not good, nothing else. We can't. We gotta get that. We've got to work that out. And that is, and I just so many times I've seen that, and that is so true, Dr. Lontoya. It is so true that we just and it's no fault of their own. But I feel like as a school system, and I'm retired, you guys, but I do feel like as for the current administrators, just some education for parents. And Danny, I know that you did it all the time on campus. We have to let our parents know that mental health is crucial.
It is
above all else.
And we talk about
next to your physical needs.
Exactly.
Needs. I mean,
and we talk about putting on those faces. You know how much energy it takes to be, your inauthentic self. I'm gonna be honest with you. I felt like I did it probably for the first 10 years that I was there in the district, because nobody wants to be the anomaly. Nobody wants to stick out and just be that person who doesn't fit in. I wanted to be the person who was known for the great quality of work that I did. And oftentimes you will hear statements like, well, you don't even have to worry about that. Do you wake up in my shoes every day? Do you know what I have to do to walk into this space every day? Do you understand, in addition to doing the work? So all of these things that we've been dealing with, to me, they became multiplied. Just think about what I'm just saying about me and what I felt like I had to walk into. You're sitting there thinking about, are you going to live or are you going to die? We've seen grandmother or grandma or aunt or uncle who has passed away during the COVID crisis. And what we doing? We still trying to have school as normal. And until we recognize mental health, connectedness, belonging, all of those things are so important. Let's Dr. Lentoria. This is why you were so effective, Danny. You know the signs and show up as the safe space we wish we had. Thank you so much for saying that.
And I concur. Oh. I concur. 100%, Dr. I was right next to him. He was my counselor. I'm telling you, the two counselors that I had, y'all were the dream team for any administrator.
And we loved you.
That is why.
But you know what? I think so much. I laugh sometimes. I laugh in my office while I'm in session sometimes. And I laugh about us, Virginia, how we would just have to take a few minutes to laugh. Yes. Because it was so heavy, the work that we were doing. Same with Dr. Davis. We would have those moments where we would laugh because the work was so heavy and we saw so much from those students and those parents who needed support. And we couldn't give them the stuff after hours, or there was a limitation because, say, for instance, we got our scores. We got to get those scores up. We got to make sure that we look good on paper. And honestly, I think I have participated in probably 5 completions when someone has died by suicide and it's completed. We call it a completion. And I think I participated in about 5 of those in my tenure being part of counseling. I just think it's such a sad statement when young people feel as though life is not worth living. And I still bring it back to connectedness and belonging. If I felt safe, if I felt like somebody really cared about how I felt, I would sit in that office and talk to them. I would, and I'll say this other part too. There were times where you have to make calls that don't necessarily go with the student code of conduct or our book. What's the book that we have to do as teachers? Because when you really get into this thing for the right thing, you do what's necessary to save a child's life. And I found myself driving down to the alternative school and telling one young man that I work with, I'm like, you better get it together. We got to get you graduated. When those young people feel like there's a personal connection, there's a personal, you care about not just them as a student, but them as a whole being and a person.
That is so true.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
I remember one time, and this is the funny story, when you said you went to alternative school. I just remember this about my own experience, and it just makes me laugh because my students, of course, I always had my campus had the most students in summer school for whatever reason. Of course, they thought that they were going to go to the new campus and just totally, like I told them, act the fool. So I remember the principal calling me, and I said, okay, well, don't let them know that I'm coming. I said, just keep them in the gym. And then I said, and then I'll be right there right before you dismiss me to go to class. And boy, Danny, when I tell you, but that was that connection that we had. Yes. That when they came into that gym, they were dancing around, just really trying to think they were going to run it their way. And then when they saw me there and I was on that microphone, I said, well, I was telling their parents, I just laughed so much because they knew, and I told them, you all know what time it is. And that's how I used to talk. They know what time it is. But sometimes, don't you dare embarrass me.
You said it though. You took a personal stance with those young people, and they knew when you meant business, and they knew the playful Miss Campbell, and they knew the one that meant business. I could hear those different changes in your voice when I knew you meant business. I want to go to this one where it talks about in New York City, they have this innovative mentoring program, and it talks about fostering connection and improving students' attitudes towards school. We had some of those kids who didn't like school. And the simple concept is connecting students with adults other than their teachers, sometimes for as little as 3 minutes. And so the result they saw, students develop far more positive feelings towards school. How could we do a similar mentoring program or implement this in our school settings? Do you have any ideas as to how we could probably get that going, or try to work with what we have to try to see the needs of students being connected?
Well, what I've seen, and again, this is from my experience, I know that when we talked about culture and belonging, Danny, I know that you and the other counselor, you all had a group of students that had similar characteristics.
True.
And do you remember that? And then you would take them and they would provide guidance to them. It starts small.
Exactly.
Those sorts of things. Family nights are always important.
Yeah, those are great.
You know, with family nights, just being able, and that was especially beneficial when I had a high number of parents that English wasn't the first language. So having family nights, because that, you know, if you can't speak the language, then obviously the parents will feel. So the student not only feels disconnected, but the parents will feel disconnected. So we had family nights are excellent. And then I also think, I tried implementing it, but I just couldn't get to the end of it before I retired. Having students from the high school come to mentor.
Oh yeah, that is so great.
That was to me the most powerful thing ever, because I'm like, wow, that to me, that you're developing lifelong.
Exactly.
You know,
Virginia, I remember there when I was working at the high school, one of the best, it just reminded me, it's not about your position. It's about how you make me feel. Yeah. And so there was this student who was acting out. I mean, she was cutting up. She was cutting up something big. And so we put together a plan for her. I called it my student support plan. And, you know, sometimes you got to be creative and create your own thing. I come from a social work background in addition to a counseling background. And I learned a lot, because a lot of times you can't get in there and do everything that a student needs. But there's somebody else who is willing to offer support. Maybe it's somebody else they're willing to listen to. Maybe they don't like mama and they need to talk to their favorite aunt to get them to do what they need them to do. Maybe daddy is not the person. They feel like dad is in and out, or he just raises his voice or something like that. Sometimes kids need a milder approach, recognizing what the student or the kid needs. But this one lady, I said, so tell me about the people who are on campus, off campus, places you've, been in our school district. Tell me, who are those people that make you feel like you want to come to school? And she said, there's this lady in the cafeteria. She always smiles at me when I go through the line. Yeah. When she told me that, that is a story that I have never forgotten, because I say it's not about a respect of a person. It's about who gets the job done, who cuts through the heart of all the chaos. That girl probably just needed that smile to get through the day. And I made it my business to tell the cafeteria worker, like, you've touched a life, and I don't know if you even realize it. I said, you are her person. She feels safe. She feels comfortable with you. And I think that's what we have to do as people in general. We have to create a place to where people feel safe. They feel comfortable. Dr. Lentoria, Rita Pearson said it best. Every child needs a champion. And that's what I really enjoyed about being an intervention counselor. And I love how Dr. Lentoria and you, Virginia, how we work together. We wrap those kids in services, and we talk to each other, and we connected with each other, and we respected each person's piece that they bring into the conversation. But we built a relationship all the way around.
And can I interject something?
Sure.
And all your action plans, I just remember sitting with you on those action plans.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you were doing that as our counselor, for the administrator to actually be authentically involved, not just there as a disciplinarian 100%.
Exactly.
Let's talk about how it's going and And to me, that was letting them know. And it just makes me feel so good when I receive emails from some of the students we work with. And I'm just like one parent told me my student is now a junior. And I told her, I said, you're bringing me to tears. I remember him as a fifth grader. And I'm like, and girl, and I told, and you know how he did, you know, it took us a minute to develop that rapport. But, you know, I'm just thinking, oh my gosh. And that's why I told him, when he graduates, I graduate too with him.
I heard that.
Because I had an instrumental part, just like you did.
I'm telling you, I totally get what you're saying. I remember I had one of these situations. I had just started being a counselor in Fort Worth. I'm gonna just say Fort Worth. And I was at an elementary campus, and I was dealing with all kind of craziness and chaos and just not having the resources, kids, behavior issues. It was off the chain, for a better saying of words. So one of the kids came into the office one day, and he's one of my frequent flyers who always stayed in trouble. And so he came into the office and he said, I said, what you in here for today? And I didn't even give him a chance. And he said, Mr. Ross, I just wanted to say thank you for always being there for me. I felt so like just egg on my face, because sometimes we have to check ourselves and treat each new opportunity as a new experience. That kid can grow overnight. Sometimes we plant seeds and we don't even realize that we're planting seeds. So from that point on, that young man taught me a lesson. Don't judge a book by its cover. Be less quick to respond and really listen to what your young person is saying and what they need.
And it's important to know, Danny, what type of seeds are we planting?
Exactly. Virginia, were there any parts that just really resonated with you in the book that you enjoyed, that you found interesting, or was there just a certain tone that you may have enjoyed about the book?
In your book, I like the fact that, well, first of all, it's an easy read. So know me, I love to read, but it's an easy read, and it's practical approaches, Danny. It's not something that I've got to sit here, well, let me go ahead and try and get a budget down for this, for the staff. It's not anything like that.
Exactly.
It's practical things that you can do. And then you have to look at, it gives you an opportunity to self-reflect.
I like
because
that.
You get practical exercises, and that's and that's easy to do.
That's
and
easy.
It doesn't cost anything. I think there was a part in your book, and it says something about talking about trying something different, like talk about going to a grocery store, speaking to a stranger.
Exactly.
Simple, easy things. Getting out of that comfort
simple, easy things.
And that is what I said. Wow, and it just wraps it around.
Exactly.
This whole thing, because when I was in graduate school, I was a big fan of Paulo Freire, philosopher, and and just things that you're doing in your book. He has a quote that says, "Looking at our past must only be a means of understanding what and who they are, so they can wisely build." And he's talking about students looking at their past, and to me, that not only resonates with our students but with ourselves. We have to look at our past. And I think that your book does that. We're having to look at things that have not been successful. Because, Danny, if we didn't need connection and relationships, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't. DLR counseling wouldn't be a thing.
Exactly.
But that's the point. So we know that it's an issue. And that just resonates with me.
You said something huge. AI, artificial intelligence, is becoming really, really huge. And everybody is fearful of their jobs and it taking over. But the one thing that I recognize with AI, it cannot replace true relationship. It cannot replace true touch, true affirmation for a person or a child when they need it. And so that's the difference. That's the difference as to what we offer. Never think that thing that you offer is not needed. sometimes you're the only person who can reach that kid, who can reach that adult, who can reach that parent. So I ask, stop just looking at parents as people who are against us and recognize they have stories. They have reasons why they respond the way that they respond. Maybe when I go back to the school and I have to sit in that little old bitty desk or at that little old bitty table, it reminds me of when the teacher called me bad or when I had a terrible experience. So all I'm asking is we get back to a place to where we think about each other. We care for each other. We talk to each other with respect. We're not doing this name calling and stuff. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like, so we want our kids and other people to be good people, but we're getting the people who are in these large spaces or high position saying mean and ugly things about each other. I'm tired of it. We have got to do better, and we have to get back to a place of connection and belonging. Virginia, you have been an amazing guest. Spectacular, one of my great friends, colleagues, and that's the key here. Not only are we colleagues, but we're friends, and we value each other's opinions, and we value each other's thoughts. And we both realize that we can get something from each other. Virginia, I want to give you an opportunity to just make a final statement. Nothing, you don't have to be long, but just give me a thought that you'd love to leave with our audience.
A thought. Danny, I can truly, honestly say this. Looking back in my career as an administrator, I so much wish that, I can't go back and change things. I've retired, but I so much wish that I had spent more time with really ensuring that all students felt connected. Because to be honest, I'm just going to let you know, there were times as the administrator, I didn't feel connected. And, and that was a terrible feeling. And I look back at my time and think, oh my gosh, did I do a disservice to my students? Because there were times I didn't feel connected with the other administrators. And so I'm thinking to myself, but looking at that, I think if moving forward, it's important that we build those relationships and connections because students need to feel valued and loved.
Yes.
And we must take the time to not only fill our students' cups, but to fill our cups as well.
Yes.
And in doing that, no matter how difficult the days, and like I'm going to leave you with this, but I would always tell the teachers and staff this, listen, parents are sending you the best they've got. They're not leaving the best they got at home. They're sending you every day the best that they've got. So how do we adapt and change to make sure we're creating an environment where our students can be successfully, emotionally, and academically?
I so appreciate you sharing your thoughts, your ideas, and things that can improve our relationships with students, parents. Pernell coming on, giving us some value as to how we look at things in the workplace. I think you said it all right there, Virginia. When we take care of ourselves, it gives us a platform to do more for others. And when you find something in yourself that is unrefined, that needs healing, that needs support, do what you need to do. Take the day off. Go to counseling. Go to church. Whatever that thing, get a support group, whatever that thing is, so that you can be the best you that you can be. You do that thing. As we aspire to be connected, as we aspire to belong, we want you to know that when you get this book and you go through it and you work through it, pass it on to someone else. Don't just buy one for yourself. Get 2 or 3, because this book is about us really learning how to communicate to each other, seeing each other, and how we can honor ourselves through dignity and just also being just great people in our lives. Thank you guys for being with us today. We have had a wonderful night. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow, I have Katina Ross, Connecting in Communities of Faith and Education. I have Dr. Lentoria Davis, Connecting in Communities of Faith and Education. And I have E.J. Warren, Connection Within Your Family. I'm looking forward to exploring those topics. And you guys go ahead and get that book. Be on here ready and eager to ask questions. Those of you who have participated tonight, thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us tonight. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic about you getting this book. www.themessages.net. We'll see you tomorrow, straight up 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Talking to you soon. We out.